Hello and welcome to the Trip-On podcast,
in which we combine architecture, entertainment and urban life.
And this episode is a bit different because this episode is called Let's Talk. We want to discuss a significant subject that came up that is within or along the lines of our interests or what we normally discuss in the Trip-On podcast. And in this case, it's a pretty significant announcement we have to admit.
The announcement of Disneyland Abu Dhabi.
This announcement was really one of the best kept secrets in the industry, and it was right up our alley, we can say, because we have spent a couple of episodes actually already on the cities of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but also on the tourism and especially the theme park industry in both these cities. So this is a great opportunity to just sit down and have a discussion about it. This is also why this episode's a bit different. It's a bit differently structured also.
Yeah, and the announcement was super exciting for us and quite unexpected. And we would like to just dig more into it and discover the topic, but also its controversies. And everything will be just based on our own observations and previous experiences that we had already in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE.
So it would be really great to hear if this episode is to your liking, but also it's a very interesting topic to discuss anyway. So if you have anything to add or if you want to have our answers on certain things, triponpodcast.com for information, and also you can even leave an audio recording and you can always send us a message or an email. Ask us, reach out. And before we dive into this subject, we of course have to start off with a little foreword. We are totally aware that this is not only an exciting subject to talk about, there's also some sensitivities and controversies, but we will talk about that also a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll come back to this one.
So what I would like is to just emphasize that we are very aware that these are not non-subjects. These are not non-matters. We know that they exist. We know that they are always tied to this particular announcement that was made between Miral and Disney. We just simply now want to talk about the situation as is, and we keep this in the back of our heads. Yeah, so I would love to start just with a very simple introduction to what is actually the city of Abu Dhabi. We have 2 episodes where we kind of discuss this matter, but we have also an episode about Dubai. In the episode of Dubai, you hear everything about Dubai and also partly some background about the UAE. So that's a very interesting episode to listen to. And also our last episode where we talk about the theme parks in the UAE. We explain some of the differences between Dubai and Abu Dhabi and how they are situated together. So I think that's good to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. So just briefly to introduce you to the city of Abu Dhabi, it is located in the Persian Gulf, and it is actually the capital of the UAE and the largest emirate by the area. However, the population is 1.5 million, and it's a bit less than in Dubai. About the languages, official language is Arabic. However, English is widely spoken. And what is interesting to know also is the fact that the currency is UAE dirham. Abu Dhabi is widely known to be a culture and heritage center. There is also a Corniche beach, which is a scenic waterfront promenade where you can see the city skyline, and it's quite of a long walk along the beach where you have a cycling path and also walking path, and there are also plenty of safaris that you can do because at the end it is located on the desert. And the climate is super hot in the summertime, up to 45 degrees, and it's milder in the wintertime, around 20 degrees. Actually, wintertime is quite nice. When Europe is cold, it's nice to be there. It is believed that the best time to visit is between November to March, because those are the cooler months. It is serving as a major global hub because of the Abu Dhabi International Airport. There is also a highway that connects it to Dubai. I think it is around 1.5 hour drive. The major industries that are in the city, so it is what we already discussed, oil and gas, but also right now tourism, which is growing extremely. And already it welcomed almost 5 million guests in the year. And the international guests are rising by 26% comparing to the last year. Another very common industry is real estate, because lots of buildings are being done, and apartment buildings. It is very common right now to invest in the Middle East. And the last one is, of course, finance.
Even though there are a lot of similarities between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, because they have been developing around the same time, I would say. And they also have similarities in, for example, the way that they look, the way that they build quite modern-looking, innovative skyscrapers. And obviously they have the similar climate and a very similar background when it comes to culture and religion. But there are also quite strong differences between the two. So, for example, geographically, if you look at the two cities, Dubai is much more a desert city with a very long stretch of coastline, and much of the coastline from Dubai is artificial because Dubai has been focusing a lot on creating coastline and land for example, luxury housing. And Abu Dhabi is situated much more in a wetlands area. And Abu Dhabi is, for example, situated on a collection of islands. And of course, much of those islands is also man-made because also Abu Dhabi has been winning a lot of land. But I think you can say that Abu Dhabi, especially the core of the city center, and also the area that most of the tourists would visit with the palace and with the boulevard and the beaches, that is very comparable, I would say, as to how Manhattan is situated with the water around it. Quite in the heart of Abu Dhabi, there's the Mangrove Marine National Park, which is a very green area, which is often also used for recreation. So you can, for example, go for either hikes or for canoeing. So I would like to geographically kind of describe for you visually how those two cities are situated. So Dubai is situated a bit more northeastern in the Emirates, and then Abu Dhabi is much more southwestern along the coastline. And between the two, of course, as Alex mentioned, there is a massive highway. And Abu Dhabi has actually on the north side of the city, so in between the city center of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, that's where Yas Island is situated. And Yas Island is literally only a 10-minute drive from the major airport, which is the Zayed International Airport. Really new airport, quite beautiful. And when you drive from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and especially when you aim for the city center, there's a really big chance that you actually might drive from the main highway over Yas Island and then over a collection of other islands towards the coastline, because that is one of the main infrastructural roads that Abu Dhabi created to get to the city. There's of course a lot of other routes. So for example, there's a major road that goes through the city center, but just like in Dubai, they are known to be very prone to traffic jams because there's just so many cars in the city. And it's quite special that when you branch off the main highway and you do take the route that goes over Yas Island, that there's no way for you not to be intrigued by all the stuff that you can find on the island, because they really promote it even on the highway, and you can in the distance really see the roof structures of, for example, Ferrari World, and you can see the Formula One track in the distance, etc. So Yas Island has a very visual, spectacular appearance already, and I think it will only be more when the Disney park would finally be situated right there. So what is Yas Island? Yas Island can be considered the driving factor into the mission of making Abu Dhabi a MICE destination. MICE is M-I-C-E. And MICE stands for Meetings, Incentives, Conferences and Exhibitions. This is a very typical set of characteristics that cities strive for. Other noteworthy MICE destinations are, for example, Singapore, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Paris and Chicago. Important factors in this MICE formula are connectivity and infrastructure, accessibility, for example by air, with good transportation also linked to that, and then cultural significance and local support are very important, corporate event locations like expos or arenas, and significant accommodation, so luxury hotels and facilities. but also leisure is becoming more and more important in those beliefs. And I think, Alex, for all those points, there is something to say that Abu Dhabi seemed to have taken these characteristics right out of the MICE playbook.
They are ticking all the boxes.
Yeah.
It is there because it is connected. They have the airport.
Yeah, cultural significance. I think Abu Dhabi is a good example where they actually build culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, even though many people think maybe that the Grand Mosque is a traditional mosque, but it's very new.
But it's bringing lots of tourists. And for those who are not really theme park enthusiasts, this is one of the main triggers to come to the Abu Dhabi.
Exactly. It's pretty visually quite spectacular. Also in the evening, it's really, really beautiful and striking.
Mm-hmm.
Another significant thing that they built, Alex already mentioned, is Qasr Al Watan, which is the national palace, which is situated on a peninsula right at the end of the city center. It's really, really visually beautiful how it is situated at open sea. Another thing that, of course, is needed for a good MICE location is corporate events. Well, that's also the thing I think that Abu Dhabi does very well, because they have a lot of luxury accommodation. They have even a lot of golf courses, just like Dubai. Luxury hotels, facilities, public beaches, but also private beaches, water parks and swimming pools. It's a very normal thing to find in the Middle East. And Abu Dhabi is in that regard not an exception. This is kind of a formula for a city to be attractive for international business and leisure. And Yas, in my mind, Yas Island started out with that in mind.
And what is really good to mention is also the level of the hospitality in the UAE. The service is always quite good.
Yeah, I think even let's say a moderate hotel, so not even a luxury resort, but even a moderate hotel has excellent guest service, often also really good breakfast, very good restaurants. In many cases, they have either their own swimming pool, or you can make use of other swimming pools in the vicinity. And in many cases, they also offer, for example, beach access, or even access to, for example, the golf course or other leisure destinations.
So it actually sounds like a very nice holiday destination to stay on the resort or in the hotels and enjoy just the island.
I think I kind of estimate that there are many people that never ever leave Yas Island and don't even get into the city center of Abu Dhabi. Because if you do arrive on Zayed International Airport and you're looking for a relaxed holiday and you tend to, for example, book accommodation on Yas Island, you have everything there that you need. You know, you don't even necessarily need to go to the city. So I think Yas really started with this MICE mindset. Actually, we come to the next point, is what is Miral even? So we have just described Abu Dhabi, which is a city, and then Yas Island is an actual physical location. But Miral is a company. So Miral is a very big player in Abu Dhabi when it comes to operating and developing experiences. They have a massive portfolio. On Yas Island, for example, their portfolio consists of Yas Marina Circuit, the Formula One track, which opened in 2009, the Ferrari World theme park, which opened in 2010, Yas Water World, which opened in 2013, the Yas Mall, which opened in 2014, Warner Brothers World, which opened in 2018, Yas Climb, which is like a climbing bouldering center, and I think they also do indoor skydiving, which opened in 2019, the Etihad Arena, which is a massive sports and events venue, which opened in 2021. And then lastly, SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, which opened in 2023. Of course, there's also a whole plethora of famous hotels and resorts. There is the W, which is a very famous glass hotel, which I think you can say a bit about, Alex.
Yeah, the W Hotel is actually an interesting architecture piece because it is built just over the Yas Marina Circuit, and you can see the track from there, but also when you go through the track, you actually go underneath the hotel. So it's very nicely integrated, and it is also beautifully lit by night.
Yeah, I think besides the fact that the W is a very well-known luxury hotel, it's also really a statement in architecture because it really embraces the Formula One track. And it's pretty impressive when we saw it for the first time. There's, of course, the Hilton Resort on Yas Island. There's the WB, which is the hotel of the Warner Brothers park by Hilton. And then there are the Yas Plaza hotels, which are more the moderate and business hotels that are on Yas Plaza. We have visited Yas Island a couple of times. We have also visited the Formula One track. We both really like Formula One. And we visited it when it was actually open to the public, and we were able to do even a pit walk during the Gulf Cup races. According to what I found online, very comparable to Formula 3 racing, kind of. It's somewhere between Formula 3 and Formula 2. Mm-hmm. And we were there as a guest, and we were actually able to walk the pit and go to the starting and finishing line. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, they also offer night cycling on the track, and they provide the bicycles. People can also walk on the track, so it's a nice way to interact with it, keep people more active, but also to keep the track alive and usable when there are no races. And I know you can also book an experience and actually drive a sports car over there. So I think it is quite of an attraction as well.
Especially when we were there, we noticed that the circuit is often accessible and also for free. Mm-hmm. So for many events and even for races, they allow you in just to be there. And that's really cool. We're actually able to visit the race over there with the Gulf Cup. And then you also see how huge that venue is. And don't forget that also in the middle of the circuit, there is even a marina. So an actual harbor. If you want to know more about Ferrari World, Warner Brothers World, but also SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, we have dedicated episodes about all these venues because we visited all of these. But definitely take a listen to that because we will also talk a bit more about its background and the experience that we had right there. And I did talk to some industry professionals who work regularly with Miral, and they have expressed that Miral has seen kind of a shift on how Yas Island is operating and what kind of people actually are drawn towards Yas Island. Ever since the opening of especially Ferrari World, Yas Island is attracting more and more families. And I think much of the hotel's occupancy rate right now is based on family entertainment, which was definitely not the case when they started out. And Miral has expressed multiple times that they actually want to change the strategy of Yas Island, and they are willing to even renovate much of the existing accommodation, and they're looking towards making Yas much more an interconnected resort. Then we have also a couple of noteworthy things outside of Yas Island. In some way Miral was involved in that, but in some cases it's operated by Miral. And a good example of that is the stuff that you can find on Saadiyat Island, but also Qasr Al Watan, the palace, apparently is operated by Miral. I didn't know that before, but I found that. And it is quite an interesting setup because one of the main highways that actually leads towards the Abu Dhabi coastline is a highway that first will take you along very closely along the Zayed International Airport, so the main Abu Dhabi airport. Then the next thing that you would enter is actually Yas Island, which is connected by a bridge. You drive over Yas Island and you will see all the big venues on your left from the highway. And then on your right, there will be actually the plot where the Disneyland is now planned. The next island is Fahid Island, which is mostly still undeveloped. This area is, by the way, very much just wetland. Then you pass a really big island, which is set, I think, to develop more also residentially, which is Al Jubail Island. And then the last island that you pass, the last major island that you pass, which is lined with a massive shoreline, is called Saadiyat Island. And I think you can tell something about this one.
Yes, for sure. Saadiyat Island is becoming a cultural district, and it has already world-class art institutions and some of the luxury resorts. And what we can find already on the island is Louvre Abu Dhabi, which opened already in 2017. And this museum is part of a collaboration between the UAE and France. And it works in the way that they exchange exhibitions between each other. And also Abu Dhabi is able to use the name Louvre for a certain amount of years. But not only the exhibition is a very special thing in that museum. The architecture, especially the dome that filters sunlight, is very unique, and it is creating a rain of light that is going inside, together with the water surrounding the building and also the water that is on the inside of the building. It is playing with the reflection and with the light going through. They also already have Team Lab in Abu Dhabi, which you've already visited in Tokyo, from what I remember.
Yeah. Team Lab is a very special setup because that is a big hall. You kind of have interaction with the art that is in this hall. So often it's projected. In many cases, they also use all of your senses. So they use water, sand. I remember that the one that we visited in Tokyo, you had to go through the entire museum barefoot. Also to feel every different space completely differently. And it's a very dreamy and sometimes even a bit hypnotic in terms of its experience. And it is said that the one in Abu Dhabi is the best. So I'm very curious to that one.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an immersive digital art museum, and visitors mainly can experience interactive installations that respond to their movement and action. And the island is committed to preserve its natural environment. And the park that is being done there, it's a national park. The Al Sadiyat Marine National Park is a protected area that supports diverse marine life, including turtles and dolphins. But the biggest things are actually still on its way because there are some upcoming developments and they continue to evolve as a cultural destination. And there is already being built Zayed National Museum and the Natural History Museum, but also the Guggenheim, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and all of these buildings you can easily say will be iconic because this is really a collection of very iconic architectural pieces.
Yes, exactly. So, for example, looking specifically into one of each. So, for example, the Zayed National Museum is designed by Fosters and Partners, and it is an architectural tribute to the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. The museum is to be the centerpiece actually on the island's cultural district because it is celebrating the history, the culture. It is very futuristic and beautiful. And the other building that stands out is, of course, Guggenheim, Abu Dhabi. And Guggenheim is designed by architect Frank Gehry. The other three Guggenheim museums are located, one of them is in New York, in Manhattan. Second one is in Bilbao in Spain. And the third one is in Venice, Italy. However, if you look at this in Bilbao or any other location, they have one of the museums and this already attracts tourism. And here we have all of them, all of the big names in one district, one island. So it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I think if you look at the pillars that were described as Miral that are very important for their business, technology, seamless connectivity, green commitment, sustainability, and partnerships, I think you can really read in both the Yas development, but also especially the Saadiyat development, that those partnerships that you have with the Guggenheim Museum, with the Louvre, those names are massive. I think if you can add Abu Dhabi to the list of the other locations of these iconic museums, these iconic places in the world, that immediately puts you on the map. And of course, the other thing is the connectivity, seamless connectivity. For now, it is mainly only by car, really easy to get from Yas Island to Saadiyat Island. I really hope that they will also introduce decent public transport. Both Abu Dhabi and Dubai are not known for having a very covering, very well laid out public transport network.
Exactly. So far, the islands and the country is very car oriented. So it is the main form of transportation. And public transport is quite of a secondary thought. However, on the Yas Island, it is already better, I would say. It is more integrated altogether.
Yeah, and Yas Island already they have the shuttles, the free Yas shuttles. So I really hope that this is also going to stretch towards the other islands in this case. And yeah, it's very impressive. Saadiyat Island, we visited it last time. We went to the Louvre. The Louvre is a very impressive piece of architecture. It's maybe not as interesting for us because we are from Europe, so we are kind of used to seeing the European art, the art pieces in the European museums, and I think that is something that you cannot replicate. And also, you know, a lot of the art was very familiar to us, but I think already the architecture itself makes it worth it to pay a visit. And it's pretty special when you are sitting in the restaurant in the Louvre Museum and you have a view on the Guggenheim, which is on the other side of the water, which is also such an iconic piece of architecture. And then a little bit further, you have this National Museum, which is absolutely gorgeous. I think we could also maybe place some renders of those museums that are being built.
I think we have some photos of the construction.
We even have some photos of the construction. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you're interested to see what it looks like, definitely check our Instagram or the website also. I was actually on Yas Island on the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st of April. There was a lot of construction going on, but I was especially interested in the 2 times that we arrived to Yas Island, to the amount of empty land that is still available on Yas Island itself, and especially a plot of empty land that is right at sea axis on kind of the northwestern side of the island. What happened is that on April the 27th, during the Arabian travel market, Miral was presenting some of their numbers from 2024. And those numbers were very good, very positive. And of course, Abu Dhabi, but also Yas Island is still a very developing tourist destination. So those numbers are going to be generally much bigger when it comes to growth. And that's something that they are very proud of right now. So according to their numbers, they invited 38 million visitors in 2024. Now, I talked about some people in the industry, and some people are saying you have to be careful with that number because they might also count the amount of people visiting the mall, and that can be a way more than what you normally have in ticketed venues. But even if you do count the mall and you would take away a couple of millions from the mall, then still it's a very, very impressive number if that's true. Just to give you a bit of context, 38 million visitors. For example, at Disney World is said to do somewhere between 55 and 60 million. I don't know exactly how they also count those numbers in Disney World, but that means that this location might actually be already really well visited for what they have on offer. This was a 10% increase of 2023. Besides that, the hotels saw an average occupancy rate of 82%, and that is a really high number. This was a 9% increase from 2023, and that's a really high number for any, I think, hotel business. Then the Yas Island theme parks and Climb, they all recorded a 20% increase in visitor numbers, of which they say that 40% was actually an increase of international visits. India went up 44%, so that's massive. China went up 81%. I think that's also a leftover of when the Chinese stopped traveling during COVID. I think they regained their trust to travel the world again. Russia went up by 29%. This also shows you why the relations between the Middle East and especially UAE and Russia is so important. There's many, many Russians coming to both Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
That's correct. It's also a lot of people from Russia living in the UAE.
There's actually millions of Russian people that chose to move to the UAE in these last years. So that's a very important market for them. And they also reported an overall growth in consumer events and corporate events. And they said that there's been especially a big growth in, for example, music events. So live events in Etihad Arena. And let's go to the next step, the timeline. What actually happened? Let's take you through the timeline quickly as to how this announcement was made and how it related to us in this case. On May the 7th, there was an official announcement which was immediately exposed in the press of a partnership between Miral and Disney. And this announcement was not a small one because they just dropped that there's going to be a Disneyland Abu Dhabi and it's going to be situated on Yas Island. I really urge you to check the socials and see how they did it. But this announcement was made on May the 7th, mainly on the socials and in press releases. And if you look it up, you can see how well this was prepared and how visual this was done. So the official announcement was made everywhere. And of course, this was followed by official press releases. In these press releases, it was shown that the directors of Disney, amongst which, of course, Bob Iger, they were all on Yas Island and they've been there for a while. And there was a huge physical event being shown in which the board of directors from Walt Disney Company and the directors of Miral were all shown together. They were shaking hands, they were discussing things. It was all set up on the coastline with a massive physical set piece in the shape of the Mickey silhouette with the Mickey ears. And of course, this news was dropping like a bomb. I don't remember any announcement as big as this one. And we have had some big announcement lately. Then on May the 8th, so the next day, the social started releasing compilation videos and edits of a red carpet event, which you can actually say it was more of a blue carpet event in this case, which was a late night event on Yas Island with fireworks, with a drone show, with a crowd even celebrating the announcement of the partnership, and a lot of images of the board of directors of Miral and Disney together, both during the day and during the night. And in front of that was this massive, massive set piece of the shape of the Mickey head with the Mickey ears in front of the open sea. The thing is that I was on Yas Island on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of April. And I saw in several instances promotion for 15 years Yas Island. And in this promotion, they were saying biggest firework display yet. And it was listed as 7th of May at 9 p.m. on Yas, and in this case on Yas Bay. To be honest, I think that's not a coincidence. This was exactly the moment when Disney was being announced. And I was already thinking like, oh, that's a pity that we're not here because it looks like a really cool event with a massive fireworks display. And later it turned out that they had this giant drone show and fireworks display on the 7th, which was later, of course, released on May the 8th as the event where Disney was being celebrated in collaboration with Miral. So this can be considered one of the best kept secrets in the theme park industry, I think. So how did you hear about it, Alex? Did you see anything or...
I think mainly I found out from you. You were the one to send the information and maybe the news article, I think, to me on WhatsApp. However, later it was all over social media and a lot of pictures with a Disney castle stating new Disney location, Abu Dhabi. And even I've noticed people who are not really a theme park enthusiast were excited about it, especially from people living in the UAE. I've seen people reposting the posts just because they are excited about it already.
Yeah, it was being shared by everyone. LinkedIn was of course booming with the news that this was coming out, and many people were sending me messages and asking me questions. And
I think you know about it?
Yeah, many people also know that I spent quite some time in the UAE lately. Also, I managed to have a couple of conversations with people that have been recently very intensely working with Miral. And the funny thing is that I talked to them and I was actually quite curious if they knew anything. And a couple of representatives from big coaster suppliers said to me they knew absolutely nothing. So the talks that they were having with Miral were only about Warner Brothers and about Ferrari World, even though we are literally talking about days before the announcement. So not even on the highest levels of management within those companies. So you have to imagine those suppliers that work with these big investors and especially also with Disney already for decades, they knew nothing about it. That tells you how well this secret was kept. Yeah, someone from the industry explained to me why this is, because I was, of course, a bit surprised by how can they keep this so secret and how does no one know about this? And he said that Disney is a Dow 30 company, which means that they are stock listed in the US. And this is, of course, a major business agreement between both Miral and Disney. A lot of money is involved. And an agreement like this, you can not have that in public because this can highly influence investors and speculation. So this is also why the initial phase was very classified. And I do really think that this was more of a legal negotiation. And eventually they signed an agreement, which is probably more like an intent between the two parties. And it's very likely that now this agreement is being shaped and that they're going into more legal negotiations about what it actually is.
And I think only now they will start to work actually on the designs.
So I do think that now Walt Disney Imagineering is probably exploding with work being done for Abu Dhabi.
That's true. And also we shouldn't be really surprised that Disney is intending to open a new park, because the last park that they've opened was already nearly a decade ago. And it was Shanghai Disneyland in 2016. So it kind of was a high time already, I think, for them to think about the new park, especially that the new construction will also take approximately from the announcement at least 5 years, I believe. That maybe wasn't as surprising. I think, of course, the location was maybe a shock, but that's why we are doing this episode, so we explain more about the region and actually how appealing it's becoming to maybe create something like that.
Yeah, and it is well known that Miral, after they opened SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, which is of course, by the way, also a very, very impressive development, it was known that Miral was looking for a new IP, a new park to be built. And then you start to look at what is available in the market, and you really quickly end up with, if you already have Warner Bros., either Universal Studios or Disney. So it was a bit of a question, like which party would be interested in Abu Dhabi? In this case, it kind of makes sense because I think it does show also that this region of the world is booming and is growing. I think you cannot deny that. And Miral is also a party that for several projects already, they have really delivered on their promises when it comes to building those parks.
Yeah, and Abu Dhabi is actually right now on track to become a major player in international family travel market. Having a Disneyland is a perfect idea because it has lots of family-friendly attractions, and it just seems like a last missing piece on the Yas Island.
Yeah, so Disney is going to, of course, add this resort to their already existing 6 resorts in the world. They have already Disney Anaheim. Disneyland Anaheim is the original Disneyland, started in the 50s. Then they have the Walt Disney World Resort, which is in Orlando. The Tokyo Disney Resort, which is, of course, in Tokyo, and I visited that, which is also a collaboration between Disney as a licensed IP holder. And on the other side, you have an investor, which is the Oriental Land Company in Japan. It is well known that the Tokyo Disney Resort is one of the most amazing Disney resorts in the world, simply because the Oriental Land Company has a lot of money. And they are mainly using Disney as the creative lead and the design studio for the resort, but the investments are being done by the Oriental Land Company. So many people are already comparing this collaboration with Miral to that collaboration with the Oriental Land Company. There is Disneyland Paris, and Disneyland Paris opened in the beginning of the 90s. It was very important for Disney to serve the European market. Then Hong Kong Disneyland Resort, which we both visited. Very impressive Disney park also, much smaller than the other ones, but very charming. And then after Hong Kong, they opened Shanghai Disneyland Resort in Shanghai in China, which is very much based on a completely different design philosophy and much more on the Chinese values. So that one also looks very different. And then, of course, now they stated that they're going to build a Disneyland resort in Abu Dhabi. So it's also very interesting to see how far will they go with trying to tailor more to the Arabic values and to the Middle East in terms of its design language. That is something that's already stated by both Disney and Miral, that this is going to be a Disney park that's going to be different from what we are used to, which I think is a very interesting direction, because we already have a couple of really beautiful Magic Kingdom style Disney parks that are much more based on the historic European architecture and design language. So it would be interesting to see if they can take this into a different direction. There was an official statement from Miral, and their statement reads, "The UAE is located within a 4-hour flight of 1/3 of the world's population, making it a significant gateway for tourism. The UAE is home to the largest global airline hub in the world, with 120 million passengers traveling through Abu Dhabi and Dubai each year." And I think, Alex, this is something that you can maybe also comment on, because this obviously makes a lot of sense for them to count also for the UAE as being this massive hub for the whole world.
UAE is becoming a major tourist destination, and having international hubs both in Abu Dhabi and Dubai makes it extremely accessible to reach the islands, Yas Island. And because it's also becoming a family-friendly destination, lots of families are coming for holidays.
Yeah, Bob Iger himself stated the UAE and Abu Dhabi is a crossroads of the world. It is a hub in many respects, places where we have typically only scratched the surface in terms of attendance to our parks. And I think what he means here is that he's especially aiming for obviously the Indian market, because the UAE is very, very near India, and it's known to have a lot of flight connections to India. Besides that, there's many Indian people coming to the UAE or living in the UAE.
Yeah, India is only 4 hours away by flight.
Exactly. Yeah, massive market. And I think that for Disney also, this market is right now, it's still a very much growing economy. And also India has been slowly opening up to the rest of the world. They used to be much more self-contained, especially when it came to media. And India is also one of those markets, even though it's so big, it doesn't yet have the same, let's say, quality theme park industry as you already find in many of the other massive growing markets. Like China already has 2 Disney resorts right now. India has none of them. And it is known that Disney has been always playing with the idea to open a Disney resort in India. There's been a lot of rumors already for years that there's going to be a Disney in Mumbai and there's going to be a Disney in New Delhi or something like that. But I think in the end, it makes much more sense for Disney to do it with a big investor like this on Yas Island, where you already have a proven stream of tourism and you are within a 4-hour flight reach from India, rather than doing it in the Indian market, which is a very specific market, I think, and maybe also more difficult to get things done. Bob Iger has confirmed in an interview, which is also interesting, a castle will arise from the sand. We do know it will be anchored by a castle. The castle will be the first real modern castle that we build. So this does imply that they already have some sort of idea about the design language of the park. I don't think the designs are done yet, but I do think that they have maybe something that we can estimate is when you look at Abu Dhabi, and especially when you look at Saadiyat Island, this very modern design language. Yeah, it is already confirmed how now the collaboration is being described as a royalty-based agreement, which means that Disney is only responsible for the creative development, and of course they are licensing their IPs and the Disney name. And the entire investment and the construction oversight is entirely done by Miral. And I think that is not a bad thing, because Miral has proven that they are really good with this construction and production development of any of those theme parks. This is a form of collaboration that was already executed before, maybe on a smaller scale, but it was similar with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers World and SeaWorld Abu Dhabi. Both of those are, of course, also under strict creative supervision from those IP holders, especially Warner Brothers, actually. And we were both very impressed by how well Warner Brothers is executed. And in this case, there will be no financial risk for Disney if you think about it. And it's the perfect opportunity for Disney to expose the Disney brand in a region of the world that has been mostly untouched. And also, I think, don't forget about Africa, because Africa is also within reach. The whole African continent has always been out of reach for Disney until this day.
Yeah.
And it does seem very logical that now with Africa also booming already for quite a long time, that they might get more and more interested in something like leisure spending and theme parks.
But also Russia, like we speculated, they don't really have a theme park like that as well. And it is also quite within a reach.
Yeah, and also the good thing is, of course, that in general, the profile of the client that would be around, in this case, the tourism, is generally also the profile of people that have money within their own country. So many of the Russian people do come to the Middle East to spend money. So it would be a small step for them to also spend a day in a Disney park.
But the same with Europeans, actually, because if you think of it, yes, there is a Disneyland Paris. However, this might be the second Disney most visited from Europe and most easily reachable, comparing to the US, for example.
Yeah, if I look at
also...
how easy it already is for us now to make our way to Abu Dhabi. So there are direct connections from several airports within each country in Europe towards Abu Dhabi and towards Dubai. I think there's even, in my case, there's even a direct connection with Wizz Air, which is a budget airline.
Yeah, exactly.
Directly from Poland to Abu Dhabi, which literally brings you from 10 minutes away from Yas Island. So that's extremely easy.
And there are different options for budget travelers, but also for more sophisticated travelers, I would say.
It is already expressed by Miral and Disney that the park will focus on indoor experiences. So some people were immediately mentioning that this means it's going to be an indoor Disney park. That's not true, because they have confirmed later that it will be a mix of indoor and outdoor. So the one thing that they have been saying is that they're going to take really good care of making it a mix of indoor and outdoor, which means that it's going to be the first real outdoor park on Yas Island. All the other parks are indoor, and that they are trying to keep in mind, of course, the very harsh and hot summers. So the only thing that we can imagine is that most of the experiences are going to be indoor, but the park itself will be probably laid out with either a lot of greenery or with a special approach towards how to move between the different zones in the park while still being comfortable. There is already an example of a park a Disney park, in this case a castle park, where they did a bit of indoor, and that is actually the one in Tokyo, where the main street is not the regular main street as you see them in the other parks, but it is a roofed main street. And it's a bit different, to be honest. I had to get used to that. I think that that is still kind of the classic approach to the main street with the beautiful ornated architecture and a roof over it. I think they might do something completely different here. I don't think they will do something like that. But it's very interesting to see how, again, these design philosophies will influence the way that this Disney park will be laid out. This will probably result in a completely different park.
Yeah, and I think they might go for some solutions that we haven't seen before. And maybe this will also be a boost for, in general, development in the Middle East with some new ways of reusing the energy that is already there, like light and sun. And maybe there will be some new approaches because of that, because we know that Disney is a very innovative concept, and everywhere they go they look for some improvements. So I think that can also benefit in the later constructions in the region. Maybe something new will come up from it. And
yeah, I hope that this will boost the trend that you have been seeing slightly, where new skyscrapers and new buildings in the Middle East, quite recently one in Dubai, they actually make use of, for example, the wind that comes in from the sea. And this results in natural cooling in many of those buildings. So some new developments are actually making use of, for example, natural atriums to use this very old philosophy that was used in the Middle East, where those big chimneys are pulling the hot air up and out of buildings. I hope that there will be a very, very tight and close collaboration between the Disney Imagineers and the Middle East, where they will use all those tricks in this Disney park, and it will actually maybe boost a completely new design language and a completely different look. But that's interesting to see. So this episode is getting a bit long, so we will split it up into two. And definitely listen to the next episode, because there we will continue the discussion about the collaboration between Miral and Disney.